You don't find your soulmate by looking. You become someone who can meet them. That one idea can flip everything you've ever believed about love, fate, and destiny on its head. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, didn't see soulmates as random miracles. He saw them as inevitable outcomes of inner transformation. Not magic, not luck, but psychological and spiritual alignment. And here's the secret. If you haven't met your soulmate yet, it's not because they don't exist. It's because there's a part of you still hiding from yourself. Jung believed that the process of meeting your soulmate doesn't begin with attraction. It begins with individuation. That is, the lifelong journey of becoming whole. And until you walk through that fire of self-discovery, the people you attract won't be mirrors of your wholeness. They'll be reflections of your wounds. That's the painful truth. Most people search for love while still fractured, still clinging to outdated beliefs, unresolved trauma, and false identities. And what do they find? Relationships that feel intense but unstable. Magnetic, yet toxic. Jung would say those aren't soulmates. They're shadows. Fragments of your unconscious projected onto someone else. All so you can see what's unhealed within you. This is why real love doesn't begin with a search for someone else. It begins with the decision to finally meet yourself. And when that meeting happens, when you stop running from your darkness and learn to love your imperfections, you begin a process Jung called individuation. The integration of the conscious and unconscious. The merging of your persona with your authentic self. The point where you no longer wear masks. You no longer pretend. You no longer attract from fear. This journey isn't easy. In fact, it often begins with crisis. A breakup. A loss. A moment where everything you thought defined you collapses. That's not punishment. That's initiation. Life is shaking you awake. It's trying to pull you inward, where the real work begins. Because let's face it, how can you expect to meet someone at the soul level when you haven't yet made peace with your own? Jung wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." And becoming who you are means walking through pain, silence, and solitude. It means shedding the ego, the image, the performance. It means facing your shadow, the parts of you you've disowned. That's the hidden curriculum of love. It demands you evolve. In this silent, inner unraveling, something powerful begins to happen. Your energy shifts. You stop craving validation. You stop chasing people. You stop settling for relationships that require you to abandon yourself. And as you become whole, your external world begins to mirror your internal alignment. Suddenly, the same patterns don't repeat. The same types of people don't appear. The chaos quiets down. And then, often when you're not looking, someone appears. Not to complete you, but to reflect you. To walk beside you, not in front of you, not behind you, but in step. Their presence feels like remembering something ancient. Their eyes don't spark fantasy, they reveal truth. And their love, it doesn't trigger your ego. It calms it. This is not a fairy tale. This is the real essence of soulmate connection as Jung saw it. A meeting of two people who've both done the work. Who've both faced their inner chaos. Who are not addicted to drama or intoxicated by projections. They are awake. They are clear. And they are whole enough to love without losing themselves. But here's the challenge. The majority of people give up on this journey. They want the connection, but not the transformation. They want the deep love, but not the deep healing. And so they settle. Again and again. Hoping that maybe this time, love will save them. Jung would say, no, love isn't here to save you. It's here to reveal you. And when it does, it won't feel like fireworks. It'll feel like home. That's how you know it's real. That's how you know the work was worth it. That you've walked through the fire, and now, the mirror shows you something you recognize. Not a fantasy, not a rescue, but a soul who stands whole beside your own. As the relationship deepens, something else emerges. An awareness that the soulmate connection is not about perfection. Neither of you is flawless, and the dance of individuation means you'll continue uncovering layers of yourself and each other that weren't visible before. Sometimes that means confusion, frustration, even conflict. But the difference now is that these moments no longer threaten the foundation. They build it stronger. Jung taught that individuation isn't a one-time event, but an ongoing process. Meeting your soulmate is not the finish line, but a new beginning, a shared journey into the depths of self and other. The shadows you faced alone now appear in the light of this relationship, inviting you both to grow. You learn to hold your partner's darkness without trying to fix it, just as they hold yours. This mutual witnessing becomes a sacred space where healing happens beyond words. This dynamic reflects what Jung called the anima and animus, the unconscious feminine and masculine energies inside each person. Your soulmate relationship activates these archetypes, stirring parts of you that long for balance and integration. When you embrace these energies within yourself and in your partner, your love transforms from dependency into complementarity. Over time, you recognize that the soulmate connection is not about escaping loneliness, but transcending it. It's about embracing aloneness while sharing life intimately. You honor the mystery of your separate journeys even as you build something shared and sacred. The tension between independence and togetherness becomes a fertile ground for creativity and compassion. This kind of love challenges cultural myths that say soulmates complete us. Instead, it reflects Jung's idea that wholeness comes first, and only then can two whole people create a union that reflects their true selves. You begin to see love as a mirror not of need, but of abundance. And here's where the paradox unfolds. As you grow individually, your relationship deepens. As you deepen your relationship, you grow individually. It's a feedback loop of transformation that Jung's psychology beautifully maps out. You no longer fear losing yourself in love because you understand the art of holding your own center. By embracing this process, you start to rewrite the story you tell yourself about relationships. No longer is love a desperate chase or a rescue mission. It becomes a conscious co-creation, a dance where vulnerability meets strength and freedom meets commitment. This is the soulmate connection Jung envisioned, not a fairy tale, but a profound, challenging, and deeply rewarding path of self-discovery and union. And so the journey continues, inviting you to keep peeling back layers, keep embracing the unknown, and keep opening your heart not only to another, but to the fullest expression of yourself. With this understanding, you begin to notice something remarkable about your soulmate connection. It acts as a catalyst for your own transformation. Every interaction, every challenge, every moment of joy pushes you closer to the core of who you really are. The relationship becomes less about comfort and more about awakening, both painful and beautiful, like a fire that burns away the false layers to reveal something pure beneath. Jung believed that true individuation required facing the unconscious parts of ourselves, the parts we'd rather ignore or hide. Your soulmate relationship brings these parts into focus. Perhaps it's jealousy that surfaces unexpectedly, or old fears of abandonment triggered by a simple disagreement. Instead of denying or suppressing these feelings, you're invited to explore them honestly. What do these emotions say about your inner wounds? How might they be guides pointing to areas where healing is needed? This process isn't easy. It demands courage and humility. You learn to sit with discomfort, knowing that growth rarely happens in comfort zones. But the payoff is profound. As you bring these hidden aspects into consciousness, they lose their power to sabotage your connection. They become integrated, transforming from burdens into sources of wisdom. Meanwhile, your partner is on a similar journey, navigating their own unconscious landscape. The relationship becomes a sacred container where both of you can show up fully, flaws, shadows, and all, without fear of rejection. This radical acceptance deepens intimacy beyond physical attraction or shared interests. It touches the spiritual core of connection that Jung described as the union of opposites. This union of opposites is where real alchemy happens. The masculine and feminine energies within and between you balance, dance, and create new life, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically through shared dreams, projects, or spiritual growth. You begin to see your soulmate not as someone to complete you, but as a partner in a sacred quest toward wholeness. At the same time, you recognize that this journey doesn't erase individuality. Rather, it honors it fiercely. Jung's concept of individuation means becoming your own person first and foremost. Soulmate love supports this by encouraging authenticity instead of conformity. You find yourself saying no to people-pleasing and yes to your own needs and boundaries. Your partner does the same. Together, you craft a relationship that celebrates freedom within union. The paradox of soulmate love: intimacy without losing self, connection without codependency, becomes your lived reality. It's messy, unpredictable, sometimes uncomfortable, but deeply alive. And through this, you come to understand Jung's essential teaching: the path to love is the path to self. Every day, you're called to choose love. Not just the feeling, but the active practice of presence, empathy, and honesty. When you stumble, you get back up. When fear creeps in, you name it. When doubt whispers lies, you speak your truth. This is the sacred work of love as individuation. As you reflect on this, you realize that meeting your soulmate was never about finding someone perfect. It was about meeting yourself in the mirror of another soul, and daring to embrace the full spectrum of light and shadow within both. As you move forward on this path, you start noticing how your soulmate relationship acts as a living mirror, not only reflecting who you are, but also revealing who you're becoming. Jung called this the mirror stage of individuation, where the encounter with another person forces you to confront your unconscious patterns. Sometimes, this reflection feels like a blessing, sometimes like a challenge, but always it's a call to greater self-awareness. You might catch yourself reacting to something your partner says or does and realize the intensity of your response isn't about them at all. It's about unresolved wounds inside you. Maybe a careless comment awakens feelings of inadequacy that have nothing to do with your partner's intent. Instead of blaming or shutting down, you take a breath and ask yourself, what old story am I carrying here? This moment of self-inquiry is a turning point. It allows you to disentangle your past pain from the present moment, freeing your relationship from the heavy chains of projection. You learn to respond rather than react. Your partner notices the shift, and slowly, the space between you fills with patience and compassion. What's remarkable is how this individual work, done within the relationship, creates a new dynamic, a relationship that supports both growth and acceptance. The old scripts about needing to change the other person or fix the relationship start to lose their grip. Instead, you embrace the reality that both of you are whole beings, imperfect and evolving. Jung believed that the goal of individuation was not to erase the ego, but to transcend its limitations. Through your soulmate connection, you begin to experience this firsthand. You see how your ego-driven fears of abandonment, rejection, or not being enough are softened by genuine presence and vulnerability. And you discover that your partner's ego struggles are just as real and tender. This shared vulnerability becomes a sacred ground where trust grows. You realize that to love deeply, you must first be willing to be seen in your entirety, even the parts you've hidden from yourself. Your soulmate encourages this courage, not by demanding perfection, but by holding space for authenticity. Love becomes less about possession or control and more about mutual liberation. You start to understand that your partner's freedom is as important as your own. The relationship thrives when both of you feel safe to explore your individuality, knowing you will be met with acceptance rather than judgment. Over time, this awareness transforms how you communicate. Arguments become less about winning and more about understanding. Differences are no longer threats but opportunities to expand your perspective. You practice listening not to respond but to truly hear, cultivating empathy that bridges gaps instead of widening them. This evolving dance between self and other mirrors the inner work of individuation. Just as you integrate your shadow and anima/animus, you integrate your partner's complexities into your shared life. You accept that love is not a static state, but a dynamic process, a living organism that grows through care, attention, and honest reflection. And so, the soulmate journey becomes a profound metaphor for the spiritual path Jung described. It's an invitation to wake up, not only to another person, but to the full depth of your own being. Through this awakening, you move from seeking completion outside to finding wholeness within. The question shifts from, where is my soulmate, to how can I deepen my connection to myself and others? This shift marks the heart of Jungian psychology's gift. Love and individuation are not separate quests, but two sides of the same coin, forever entwined. As you dive deeper into this journey, you realize that individuation through your soulmate connection is not just about personal growth. It's about spiritual awakening. Jung believed that beneath the personal unconscious lies a collective unconscious, a shared well of symbols, myths, and archetypes that connect all human beings. Your soulmate relationship can be a gateway into this deeper realm, where love transcends the personal and touches something universal. You might experience moments where your connection feels mystical, as if you're communicating beyond words or logic. These moments aren't coincidences, but glimpses of the archetypal forces at play, the eternal dance of the self seeking wholeness through union with the other. Jung called this process the integration of opposites, where seemingly contradictory elements come together to create harmony. In your relationship, these opposites show up in many ways: light and shadow, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious. Meeting your soulmate stirs these tensions, inviting you to hold both sides without judgment. This balancing act leads to a richer, more nuanced understanding of love, one that includes mystery, paradox, and transformation. At times, you might feel pulled into patterns that seem repetitive or confusing. This is the unconscious working through old wounds and unfinished business. Instead of avoiding these challenges, you learn to lean into them with curiosity and courage. Each difficulty becomes an initiation, a chance to shed old beliefs and step into a more authentic version of yourself. Jung's ideas about synchronicity, the meaningful coincidences that defy explanation, often become evident in soulmate relationships. You might notice uncanny timings, repeated symbols, or shared dreams that seem to guide your path together. These experiences reinforce the sense that your meeting was no accident but part of a larger, unfolding plan. Through this lens, your soulmate connection is both deeply personal and profoundly cosmic. It's an invitation to participate in the ongoing creation of life's meaning, co-creating not just a relationship, but a sacred partnership with the universe itself. This spiritual dimension doesn't negate the practical realities of partnership. Instead, it grounds them in a deeper purpose. You approach daily life with greater presence and intention, seeing every interaction as a chance to practice love and growth. Mundane moments become sacred rituals, sharing a meal, offering forgiveness, simply being present. You start to understand that true love requires not only passion and affection, but also discipline and commitment. The spiritual path within your relationship calls for patience and persistence, for it mirrors the inner work of integrating your fragmented self. With this awareness, jealousy, fear, and insecurity lose their grip. You recognize them as old shadows dissolving in the light of your evolving love. Trust replaces doubt. Compassion replaces judgment. And you feel a growing sense of peace, not because everything is perfect, but because you are learning to embrace imperfection with grace. Ultimately, meeting your soulmate through individuation is a journey toward wholeness, not just as a couple, but as individuals connected to something greater than themselves. It's a path of healing, awakening, and profound transformation, inviting you to step fully into your power and your vulnerability. This is the love Jung envisioned: complex, challenging, mysterious, and infinitely rewarding.